Welcome to the fifth podcast episode of the Iowa ASCD Standards-Based Grading Podcast Series. My name is Matt Townsley, and with me, as usual, is my co-host, Eric Townsley.
Hello, everyone, and we're glad to be back. We've taken the summer off of our recording. I'm in a new position in a new school district, so things have been hectic for the last about 5 to 6 months, and so we're excited to be back learning some more about standards-based grading.
Yes, it is. It's great to be back. Eric, as per the usual, we have two key readings, and today our focus is on the idea of homework in a standards-based grading system. In our two key readings, the first one is an article called Making Homework Central to Learning by Dr. Kathy Vatterott, and it comes from the November 2011 issue of Educational Leadership. And Eric, if there is a reason to join ASCD, it really is to access this November 2011 issue of Ed Leadership. If at the very least we could ask our readers, our listeners and viewers to consider buying this specific issue. It really is jam-packed with quality articles related to homework assessment and grading.
You're right, Matt. We've really tried to keep all of our readings free for use. But one, and especially like you said, this issue of ASCD Ed Leadership is just tremendous. I'd say a must read for a person working in a standards-based system.
I agree. I agree. And the other key reading that we're basing this podcast episode on, homework in a standards-based grading system, is an article called How to Create Effective Homework. It's actually more of a blog post by Holly Corby. So let's jump in, Eric, to the tenets of homework in a standards-based grading system. Go ahead and kick us off with the first major tenet of homework in a standards-based grading system.
All right, sounds great, Matt. We believe a tenet of standards-based grading is having homework not count towards the final grade. We are true believers in the reporting to be what does a student know and be able to do towards the standard, and those should be assessments. If this is a practice item that's outside of class, you don't get it if you're turning it in. And so we believe it shouldn't count towards that final grade.
I agree. I think another tenet is that feedback must be given. In other words, if we're going to actually have students complete the practice or homework, we should be providing a correct answer or possible solutions to that homework. If there's misconceptions or areas of improvement that are going on as a result of that homework, they should be noted. So really, we want our students to know that there's a purpose to the homework, and that purpose is to find out where they need to improve, and we should provide them with feedback on that.
I'll be honest about Matt. One thing that comes up about feedback that I've worked with staffs a lot about is a good job or a star is not good feedback.
That's right. That's right.
It should and also be maybe a level of understanding entered as well. So
great point.
Another standards-based system is it should and needs to be able to be independently practiced by the student. If the student is not ready to practice it independently, they're going to become frustrated and not know what to do. And so they need to be able to be working on that skill independently with an understanding of what their outcomes are trying to be. So many times that we've seen homework being sent home that is really new learning. Students become frustrated, and it's just not a good situation for students and families in that situation. So,
yeah, great point, Eric. I think our final homework tenet in the standards-based grading system is that the homework needs to have a connection to the standards. Excuse me. Whatever that skill or task is that students are being expected to do, there should be a very explicit connection to the classroom learning that's taken place. So the student should almost be able to identify, here's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Exactly. Matt, why don't you talk to us about some examples of homework? What can it look like in classroom practice?
Great idea. Eric, both you and I were math teachers back in the day, and I still think that there is a time and a place for book problems. If they match the standards, it's a great opportunity to do that. They're already there and available for students and teachers to use. But I really believe that the teacher should be providing students with the correct solution. Sometimes that could be actually while they're completing that homework during class, or take that home with them. Maybe not all of the answers, although I'd probably lean more yes, all the answers than no, but at the very least,
I would too.
Have a lot more of the answers provided. We don't want to send home this idea with the student of not knowing whether or not they're doing it right. And so we want them to have that feedback readily available to them.
I actually left my answer key in the back of my room. So when we were working independently in the class, students knew they could go back and check their answers at any time. So and another example that we've talked about is a literacy task, an English language arts task. With the ability of one-to-one devices now, whether that be iPads, Chromebooks, computer laptops, or whatever, the ability and access to Google Docs as a tool for feedback is really a thing that's necessary right now. And so, no matter whatever writing task you're doing in your ELA classroom, that constant form of communication and feedback, whether that be from student to teacher or peer to peer, that process can be really universal using that Google Doc. So we really view that as a positive homework item as well.
Yeah, great point. Eric, what I did is I actually dug up a Common Core standard ELA literacy, an actual statement, and it comes from RH.6-8.8. And the standard says that students should distinguish among fact, opinion, and reasoned judgment in a text. So I thought is, what if a homework assignment was asking students to find examples in a newspaper advertisement or a mailing, and the student actually had to mark up, here's a fact, here's an opinion, or here's a reasoned judgment, and then bring that back to class. I thought that could be a really meaningful way.
That's a good one.
Another thing I thought of just today, I heard about a Spanish teacher who has students get some type of form or document that they see like in their everyday life, like maybe they go to the doctor's office and there's some forms there, and then they actually do a partial translation of that form into Spanish, and they bring that back to class. I thought that's kind of a really meaningful task as well that could be assigned.
Oh, and I think one from the social studies classroom, right? I mean, right now we're in the end of October as we're recording this, and we're already immersed in the political ads of the upcoming presidential election. In the social studies classroom, you could have students fact find the claims that are being made by the candidates and also the groups that are supporting the candidates, and then make those connections. As they're watching their favorite TV show, there's going to be ads on, or they're going to receive phone calls or whatever. And so just making those connections as well, and then bringing those back and sharing them in the classroom would be a useful homework assignment as well. One of the things that I think we both agree on, Matt, and we've talked a lot about is as your system, or whether that your system be your classroom or your school or your district, is making the move or is refining their standards-based grading practices, communication about homework completion to parents and students is an important part of that. Employability skill of task completion is important. That's one of the Iowa core standards is employability. Again, that wouldn't be counting towards the final grade, but you can use your reporting system, whether it be one of the big three in the state of Iowa, Infinite Campus, Power School, or JMC, to let students know how they're doing on practice. Whether it be a check mark, an X, whatever you're going to do that in your system. But just a way to communicate that to the parents and students that, what little Johnny is doing his homework. Another reason that I'm a firm believer in that is as you're looking at your reassessment practices, and we'll get to that in our next episode, having a record of if the student completed the homework task is a good way to help reinforce some learning. So if they're, not meeting standard at the level in which they want, they can, you can work with them to say, hey, you didn't do this practice. Why don't we know, here's a mini lesson on that. Here's some practice you can do that you should have done before. And then we'll do that as a reassessment later on. Is also a great way to make that connection with homework as well. Why don't you wrap things up for us, Matt?
Yeah, you bet. So what we've done really in this podcast episode is we've thought about the role of homework in a standards-based grading system. Is first, we thought about the tenets of homework. For example, that homework should not count towards the final grade, and that feedback really should be an important part, a required part of students completing and receiving feedback on their homework, that students should be able to practice homework independently, and that the homework should be connected to standards. Then the next thing we did is we shared some practical examples from math, literacy, social studies, and even a Spanish example in there. And then you ended us here just a moment ago, Eric, with really a strong encouragement and something I really believe in as well, for teachers utilizing standards-based grading to continue reporting homework completion in the grade book, even if it doesn't count towards the final grade. So it really, I think, was some really practical ways of making this idea of homework, something that's not going away, much more meaningful to students and to parents. So where are we going next in our next episode, episode 6?
Our next episode 6, we're going to be talking about reassessment and late work. So we're going to really get into what should reassessment look like. We're going to talk about some practical examples of maybe some procedures for reassessment, and then also how late work should be handled and how that all fits into the system. So tune in the upcoming weeks as we get into that, and really look forward to talking to you again. I'm Eric Townsley, and for my brother Matt Townsley, we'll see you later. Have a good one.
See ya.